Did you know? Heath Ledger was originally considered to play the role of Max in Mad Max Fury Road. Series director George Miller told the Daily Beast, "Every time Heath would come through Sydney, he'd call in and we'd chat about Max. He had that same thing that Mel and Tom Hardy have, that maleness, charisma, and restless energy which you need to play a relatively still character." The role had to be given away after Ledger tragically passed in 2008. Interestingly, Miller ended up going with Tom Hardy, who also played a villain in Christopher Nolan's reimagining of the Batman franchise. Fury Road was stuck in development hell for 17 years. After acquiring the rights from Warner Brothers in 1995, it took Miller several years to come up with the basic story of a Mad Max 4. Several events would delay production, however. The movie was planned to start production in 2001, but was delayed due to the September 11th attacks. In 2003, more delays came due to concerns surrounding the invasion of Iraq and how the war might affect production in the upcoming years. These troubles coincided with the collapse of the American dollar compared to the Australian dollar, which cut the team's budget down to around 75%. Miller also had to step aside so he could direct the 3D animated feature Happy Feet, which only had a small production window. Fury Road was conceived without a traditional script or screenplay, and relied instead on storyboarding. Miller wanted foreign audiences to easily understand the movie, so he opted to use symbolism commonly understood across various cultures. Miller worked with artists Peter Pound, Mark Sexton, and the uncredited Rain Anderson throughout the 90s and 2000s to create 1,465 storyboards totaling in 3,454 individual panels. This unorthodox method of filmmaking led to tension and confusion during the production. Actor Tom Hardy reportedly said that he was unaware of what exactly Miller wanted him to do during any given moment. Crew members had to constantly consult with the director, as the vision for the film existed only in his head. Despite this unconventional approach, Fury Road turned out to be both a critical and commercial success. After its premiere, Tom Hardy issued an apology stating, "I owe George Miller an apology for being so myopic. I knew he was brilliant, but I didn't know how brilliant until I saw it." Multiple characters in the Mad Max franchise are played by the same actor. Hugh Keys-Byrne played the antagonist Toe Cutter in the original Mad Max and later portrayed Immortan Joe in Fury Road. Bruce Spence, who portrayed the Gyro Captain in Road Warrior, also made an appearance as Jedediah the Pilot in Beyond Thunderdome. Max Fairchild played Benno in the original Mad Max, but also returned as one of the victims strapped to the front of Humongous's vehicle in the Road Warrior. While working as a doctor in 1971, George Miller attended a summer film school where he met Byron Kennedy. 8 years later, the pair began working on Mad Max together. The production of the 1979 Mad Max was described as guerrilla filmmaking by Miller. The entire film was made on a minuscule budget of 350,000 Australian dollars, or roughly 1.1 million US dollars adjusted for inflation. Wanting to cut costs, Miller allowed his art director to steal props to avoid spending money. A majority of the crew was paid in beer, including on-set security and the extras from the Vigilantes, who were a real biker gang. Miller and Kennedy originally wanted an American actor to portray Max, but had to settle for a local Australian when they realized an American actor would be too expensive. They eventually settled on the then unknown Mel Gibson. Gibson showed up to the audition covered in bruises and a swollen face, which he acquired from a drunken brawl a week prior. He won the part due to the casting agency supposedly looking for freaks, joking with them and confirming that yes, he could drive. Mad Max became a hit worldwide, grossing over $100 million and receiving the Guinness World Record for highest profit to cost film until the Blair Witch Project was released in 1999. However, the film wasn't a hit in the United States, where it grossed just $8 million. This is likely because the film was completely redubbed in America to get rid of the Australian accents.
Sure, there's a shop just down the beach.
Sure, there's a shop just down the beach.
It wasn't until 2001 that the original audio cut of Mad Max made its way to the United States. Miller would continue to work with Kennedy on the sequel film, The Road Warrior. However, Beyond Thunderdome was written without Kennedy as he passed away in 1983. Initially reluctant to move forward with the production of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Miller ended up just co-directing the film with George Ogilvy. Miller only directed the action sequences, which may explain the differences in tone throughout the film. The Mad Max franchise has influenced several other productions, including the manga and anime Fist of the North Star. The Fallout series was also influenced by Mad Max, featuring canine companions and various sets of armor similar to Mel Gibson's costume. Game designer Hideo Kojima has stated that both the Mad Max franchise and George Miller were huge influences for Metal Gear Solid, stating, "My games were made with a lot of genes inherited from George Miller. You might say that because Miller existed, I exist. It's not just the dialogue. The silhouettes, clothes, equipment, the way characters move, it's all fantastic. These are all things I used for reference when making games." Lee Winnell and James Wan have stated that the final scene of Mad Max inspired the entirety of their Saw movie series. The scene has Max handcuffing Johnny the Boy's ankle to the wreckage of a vehicle, leaving him with only a hacksaw, similar to the scene in Saw. In the Rugrats episode, The Sky is Falling, the main characters find themselves in an end-of-the-world sketch that heavily mimics Mad Max 2. The Mad Max franchise often uses practical effects instead of CGI for its stunts. In Fury Road, most of the stunts were performed with real people on location. Stunt director and supervisor Guy Norris said that the process of coordinating these stunts was literally like going to war. This insistence on practical stunts led to some very dangerous moments during filming. In one scene, Tom Hardy falls from a speeding rig and is caught mere inches from the ground by Furiosa. Hardy's son Louis was concerned about the stunt, but Miller reassured him that Hardy would be safe because the wires securing him were capable of holding a grand piano. When Louis asked what would happen if they snapped, Miller replied with, "Well, Louis, I suppose he'd go under the wheels." In The Road Warrior, a dangerous stunt involving a massive tanker had the crew taking many precautions. Stunt driver Dennis Williams was told not to eat 12 hours before the scene was filmed so there would be fewer issues in surgery if anything were to go wrong. The shot had a helicopter and ambulance standing by, and many members of the film crew refused to attend the shoot. Thankfully, Williams was able to pull it off in one shot without any incident. Unfortunately, not all of the franchise's dangerous stunts were as successful. Another scene from The Road Warrior required stuntman Guy Norris to drive a motorcycle into a car, causing him to fly off camera into a pile of cardboard. However, Norris's legs clipped the car mid-crash, causing him to rapidly flip forward. While Norris was forced to leave the production because of his injuries, George Miller thought the stunt looked spectacular and used it in the film's final cut. Make sure you subscribe for more facts and trivia, and if you liked this video, give it a like. If you're into post-apocalyptic action, check out our video on The Matrix. And hey, I'm Austin from a channel called Arcadia. We like to talk about movies and video games and all that, and if you click right here, you can check out my video on the top 10 worst sequels in video games. You know, worst sequels because Beyond Thunderdome exists, right?